I remember when it all started. The village was buzzing with excitement. King Azubuike had announced that he was ready to take a bride. Everyone in the kingdom talked about it like it was the biggest news ever. King Azubuike was a kind ruler, respected by all. He was tall, handsome, with a rich, deep voice that carried authority. But he was still unmarried, and people often wonder why a man of his status hadn't settled down. The day he made his announcement, I was in the market selling yams with my mother. Women gathered, whispering and jingling about the possibility of their daughters becoming queen. They said the king would choose his bride from the village. Any young woman could present herself before him. It was like a dream to many families. But I remember Nneka most of all. She was my closest friend. She was beautiful, gentle, and hardworking. Everyone admired her kindness. But Nneka was also poor. She lived with her mother, who was sick most of the time. And she did everything to take care of her mom. Nneka, aren't you going to present yourself to the king? I asked her one evening. She laughed, shaking her head. What will I present myself with, Ada? She replied. I have nothing. No fine clothes, no jewels. And what would the king want with a poor girl like me? But her beauty didn't need jewelries. It shone from within her. I told her that, but she only smiled sadly. When the day came for the maidens to gather before the king, the village square was crowded. Guests wore their finest wrappers, beaded necklace, and bright smiles. Nneka stood beside me, dressed in her plain but clean wrapper. Her hair was neatly braided, her eyes gentle and calm. The king arrived, surrounded by his guards and advisors. He moved among the maidens, greeting them kindly. But he didn't seem impressed. Then he saw Nneka. His eyes softened when he looked at her. He asked her name, and she answered with such grace. It was like something shifted in the air. Days went by, and the king called for Nneka to come to the palace. My heart beat fast when she told me, Ada, what do I do? She asked, her eyes wide with fear. Go, Nneka, just be yourself, I told her. I waited all day, pacing in front of her little house. When she returned, her eyes were shining with tears. He asked me to marry him. She whispered. He said he saw something special in me, that he admired my kindness and courage. We both cried and laughed that night, but the joy was short-lived. People from the village started whispering. Some were happy for Nneka, but many were not. They said she didn't deserve to be the queen, that she was too poor, too simple. Some girls who had hoped to marry the king spread cruel rumors about her. The king's advisor also spoke against her. They tried to convince him to change his mind. They wanted him to marry a rich man's daughter, someone with power and influence. Nneka was heartbroken. I watched her cry so many nights, her gentle heart torn by the cruelty of others. I tried to comfort her, but the words never seemed enough. But King Azubuike never wavered. He stood by her. He defended her before everyone. And when they married, it was the grandest celebration our village had ever seen. But then, some people continued to speak against her. They looked for faults, spread lies. It hurt her deeply. Years went by, and Nneka remained the same kind and loving woman she had always been. She treated everyone with kindness, even those who had spoken against her. She helped the poor, visited the sick, and showed respect to everyone. And slowly, one by one, people began to see her true worth. They began to admire her kindness, her patience, her strength. The last time I visited her in the palace, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. Ada, sometimes I wonder if the pain was worth it. But then I remembered the king loved me for who I truly was, and that love gave me strength. I held her hand and told her, "You are the best queen in this village, the best queen that this village has ever known, Nneka, and nothing can change that." They called her the people's queen after that, and even now, years later, her name still carries a warmth that can never be forgotten. Years passed, and Nneka grew into her role as queen with such grace that even her fierce critics couldn't deny her goodness. She was loved by the commoners and even respected by those who once doubted her. But life was not always kind to Nneka. She and the king longed for children. But years after years, there was no child. People began to murmur again, blaming her for being barren. The king advisor pressured him to take another wife who could give him a heir. But King Azubike's love for Nneka never faded. He stood by her. Even when his advisor tried to poison his mind against her, he made it clear that he would have no other wife but her. I often visited Nneka in the palace, and I could see the sadness in her eyes, despite her gentle smile. "Ada," she said to me one day. Her voice was breaking. "I feel like I have failed the king. I cannot give him what he desires most." I held her hand, my heart aching for her. "Nneka, you are more than enough. The king loves you for who you are and not what you can give him." She nodded, but her tears fell. I tried to believe that Ada, but the voice of others, they cut so deeply. Time went on, and King Azubuike's heart began to fail. I watched Nneka care for him with such devotion, never leaving his side. She would stay awake through the night, praying for his recovery, feeding him, washing him, speaking words of encouragement when the pain became too much. One stormy night, the king called for me to come to the palace. I rushed there, my feet soaked from the rain. When I entered his chamber, he was lying weakly on the bed, Nneka by his side, and her eyes swollen from crying. "Ada," he whispered, his voice so faint. I had to lean close to hear him. "Take care of Nneka when I am gone. She has suffered too much because of me." "My king, don't speak like this," I pleaded. "You will recover." But he only smiled sadly. "I have lived my life, Ada. But Nneka, she must continue to live hers. Tell the people of her kindness. Defend her when they speak against her." I promised him, tears burning my eyes, and with a final look at Nneka, the king closed his eyes forever. The mourning in the village was deep and terrible, but for Nneka, it was like her whole world had been torn apart. She wept for days, refusing to eat or speak. The palace felt cold and empty without King Azubuike's warm presence. And the whispers began again. Some villagers said Nneka had brought bad luck to the king. They said she was cursed, that her childlessness has killed the king. But Nneka did not fight back. She only mourned. It was during those dark days that I moved into the palace to stay with her. I couldn't leave her alone. I watched her suffer, and it broke my heart. One evening, as we sat in the chamber, she looked at me with those sad, gentle eyes. "Ada, do you think the king regretted marrying me?" I grabbed her hand, shaking my head furiously. "No, Nneka. He loved you more than anything in this world. His only regret was that he couldn't make you happy enough." She cried that night, and I heard her, feeling her pain like it was my own. More months went by, and Nneka slowly began to find her strength again. She continued to care for the villagers, feeding the poor, visiting the sick. Even though some still spoke ill of her, she never stopped showing kindness. Then something happened that none of us expected. A terrible famine struck the village. Crops failed, livestock died, and hunger became a common enemy. Many people lost hope, but Nneka, even in her own grief, rose up to help the people. She used her resources to buy food from faraway villages. She organized groups to distribute the food, making sure no one went hungry. People saw her kindness, they saw her sacrifice, and slowly those who spoke against her began to praise her. They called her the mother of the people. Years later, when I was old and tired, I still visited Nneka in the palace. She never married again. She said her heart belongs to King Azubuike and would remain that way forever. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, she sat beside me and smiled. Ada, you were always there for me, even when others turned away. I will always be here for you, Nneka, always. And in that moment, I realized something. Nneka was more than a queen. She was a woman who had suffered so much pain, but never let it destroy her kindness. She had lived through sorrow, rejection, and loneliness, but her heart had remained pure, and that, I knew, was her true strength. Until this day, they still speak of Queen Nneka. They say her kindness changed the village forever, and I am proud to have been her friend. Thank you for watching this emotional and powerful story, The King's Bride. Queen Nneka's journey was not easy. She faced rejection, hatred, and unimaginable pain. But through it all, her kindness and strength shone brighter than the darkest night. Her story teaches us that true beauty comes from the heart, and real strength is found in kindness, even when the world tries to break you. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share. Let me know your thoughts and what lessons you learned from Queen Nneka's journey. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more touching and dramatic stories, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any upload. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.